Okay, Jeff, thanks for joining. I wanted to start with this whole kind of drama on the American right. No enemies to my right, it's being referred to as.
Mhm.
But I'll just kind of try and, just for the audience, I'll try and frame what's happened in the last week or so.
Okay.
That Nick Fuentes, who is this kind of edgelord character who's been around
Yeah.
for about 10 years, was debanked and censored, was brought back onto Twitter by Elon. He's has a following of people called Groypers. He's like an avowed white, like sort of racialist. I think he's kind of a provocateur. Obviously, he's a provocateur um, and a kind of racist. He's also very funny and talented, I think. But we can get into more into who we think he is later. But he's a very controversial character. He went on the Red Scare podcast with those girls. If you know that one, that's more of like a sort of edgy
Mhm.
cultural podcast. No big deal. But then Tucker Carlson invited him on his show,
Mhm.
which was viewed by some segments of the right as platforming him, and also gave him an interview in which he didn't really ask him any meaningful questions about his record, what his views are, the ones that are controversial and people actually want to know about. So, in the wake of that, there was a sort of upheaval where Tucker was criticized for doing this, for platforming a neo Nazi. The Heritage Foundation, this was sort of the biggest thing that crystallized the whole thing. The Heritage Foundation put out a video in which they said they abhorred, neo Nazis, obviously, but that they stand with Tucker Carlson no matter what, basically, and weren't going to be um, bullied by evangelicals and the pro Israel crowd.
Mhm.
Is that basically your understanding of the events?
Yeah. That is my
Um,
understanding. Um,
how
and
do
it,
you view, like, from your perspective, what are the factions on the right, and kind of what are the implications of it? I find it personally kind of bizarre. I don't think anyone should be there. Obviously, shouldn't be any censorship whatsoever. Tucker Carlson can have whomever he wants on his show.
correct.
There is this kind of dynamic of inviting certain fringe characters into a political movement that could totally poison it. That seems to be the discussion.
Yeah. I think this is basically a tempest in a teapot. Tucker has a right to, as you said, interview whoever he wants to interview, and there's nothing wrong with interviewing extremists. I've interviewed extremists many times in my life, for my and as a product of my as part of my research into various kinds of right wing extremist groups. And generally, when you're doing an interview with anybody. First of all, extremists are happy to talk to people that they think are serious interlocutors. They're not, people say, oh, how it must be difficult or impossible to get to talk to extremists. No, they love to talk about their ideas. Once you get them talking, they won't shut up. So the only thing that you have to do is be an honest interlocutor. And when you're doing an interview with anybody, whether it's an extremist or not an extremist, you don't start out attacking the person and like interrupting them every time they say something you don't agree with. If you do that, you're not going to get much information. The point of an interview is to elicit useful information, to understand what a person's views are. And if you're constantly interrupting and stopping them and arguing with them about every little point they make, they're going to close up. It's going to become a hostile interaction, and you're not going to learn a damn thing. So there's literally no point in interviewing somebody if you're just going to be adopting a completely hostile attitude. On the other hand, that doesn't mean that you should be adopting an overly sympathetic attitude toward things that they say. So, I mean, I think you just have to be an honest person. You say, like, for example, if I'm doing research on the radical right or any other type of extremist group, I make myself clear. I'm a historian. I'm a scholar. I want to find out about their views, and that's all there is to it. I'm not going to distort or misrepresent their views. I'm not going to try to ask them gotcha questions and embarrass them. I'm just going to try to elicit information from them to figure out what their worldviews about various things are. I mean, that's the whole point of doing an interview. So I've got no problem. First of all, nobody has a right to tell somebody else who they can and can't interview. So all these gatekeepers, who were like denouncing Carlson just for interviewing Fuentes. I mean, fuck those people. I mean,
Yeah,
who the hell do
100%.
they, who the hell do they think they are? You know. Now, if you want to make the argument that the interview that Tucker did, there were problems with it. I mean, I watched it some days ago, and I thought it was just a bizarre kind of an interview. I mean, Tucker did push back on a number of points against Fuentes. It wasn't like he was agreeing with everything he said. I mean, he was being friendly, which is, you want somebody to be friendly in an interview as opposed to adopt an overtly hostile posture. But he wasn't. He was pushing back, especially on the identity politics thing. Tucker was pushing back, talking about color blindness and individual view, evaluating people as individuals, and that's be doing. And I agreed with his view on that. And I don't understand why anybody would complain about that. Now, his rationale for adopting that position was because God instructs you to do it, or God wants you to do it. I mean, all this Christian gobbledygook was really off-putting to me, at least. And but both these guys are Christians. I mean, when you're talking about Fuentes is a white nationalist. He's also a Christian nationalist, or he started out as a kind of a Catholic, a traditional Catholic, and I would say he's become kind of a Christian nationalist. And so, I mean, that's what he is. And there's nothing wrong with interviewing somebody like that, provided that you know what they're. I mean, you have an idea what you're doing it for a particular reason. You're trying to get them to explain what their ideas are. There's literally nothing wrong with that. So the problem I have is that these people who are gatekeepers, if you want to call them that, on the right. I mean, now, as I've said, and I posted some stuff on X about it. I mean, I said, there's nothing wrong with interviewing Fuentes, and you can criticize Tucker for expressing certain foolish ideas during the interview, which I do, that's, in other words, you can legitimately criticize Fuentes' ideas, and you can legitimately criticize Tucker's ideas, or you can criticize some aspects of how Tucker conducted the interview or something. But so what? I mean, this whole idea that they should be canceled, like Fuentes is so extreme that he shouldn't even have a platform. You should just eliminate him altogether from any conversations. And I mean, this whole censorship thing just, is one of my main bugaboos. So anybody who wants to censor extremists, I mean, is just, in my opinion, a complete idiot, because number one, you're not really understanding them. It makes it more difficult to understand their views. And number two, censoring them doesn't make those views go away. It just drives them further underground. So even from a practical standpoint, censoring people ultimately isn't beneficial. I mean, I would think that you would want the widest possible audience of people to become familiar with the views of extremists. So then they can say, well, wow, I didn't realize he had those kind of views. I mean, that's a view that, I mean, in other words, yeah, there's going to be some people who are attracted to those views, but so what? I mean, there's already some people who support those views and are attracted to those views. So it's not like not interviewing Fuentes is going to eliminate his audience or prevent him from expressing his views, or so again, I just don't understand. And if anything, I would say that this hysteria about the interview has actually given Fuentes the kind of free publicity that he wouldn't have otherwise gotten.
Yes.
I mean, all this hysteria about it is making more and more people want to listen to Fuentes, because they don't like people telling people what they can and can't say, and and who people can interview and can't interview. And people are sick of it. People have been radical, sensible people have been opposed to like censorship no matter where it comes from all along. They've been opposed to the cancel culture on the left and the wokeness and the political correctness, and they're opposed to like the religious fundamentalists trying to impose censorship of various kinds and control people's behavior. I mean, fuck all those people. I mean, nobody, they don't have I mean, they have a right to express their opinions too, but they certainly don't have a right to tell other people that they don't have a right to express their opinions, And so to me, the whole thing is just like a bunch of nonsense. I mean, look, a lot of people already hate Tucker Carlson because Tucker Carlson has kind of gone off the deep end a little bit with a lot of his views since he left Fox. He's been, like that ridiculous thing he did where he was talking about look how clean the Moscow subways are and food's cheaper in Moscow. It was just like a kind of a ridiculous thing he was doing. I mean, I get, see, here's what the problem is. When people start challenging officially approved narratives, most of which are bogus, they oftentimes then start adopting alternative narratives, which are even more ridiculous. They adopt conspiracy theories. They adopt, like dopey views on all kinds of subjects. A good example of that is Brett Weinstein. Brett Weinstein is an interesting guy. He's evolutionary biologist. I listen to his podcast along with many, many other people's podcasts, and I don't always agree with the things he says. I don't always agree with what anybody says. But just like last week, he did a podcast where he was interviewing Ron Johnson, and they were talking about 9/11 conspiracy theories. I mean, they are embracing 9/11 conspiracy theories, like the controlled demolition of World Trade Center 7 building and all this complete fucking nonsense, man. And I mean, I was really kind of shocked. And again, it just shows you that once people say, look, the officially approved narratives have all kinds of problems with them. A lot of them are just completely false. I'm going to do my own research. I'm going to look for alternative explanations. I mean, yeah, you should be skeptical of officially approved narratives, but you should be equally skeptical of alternative narratives. And the problem is that some people just go down the rabbit hole or go off the deep end, embracing like crackpot ideas that are alternative just because they challenge establishment ideas, like the whole QAnon nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like the most ridiculous thing in the world. And then all these like pearl clutching leftists were like getting hysterical about QAnon. Oh my God. I told everybody in 5 years, nobody's going to be talking about QAnon anymore.
And you were correct about
that.
They're not.
Yeah. Now, as far as Nick Fuentes is the Richard Spencer of our era. He's a guy who gets a lot of publicity for a little while. He becomes like a spokesman for like the white nationalists. He's got all kinds of personality flaws. He's a bit of a provocateur. He's like juvenile in some ways. He's a troll. He's articulate and
Do you think he's funny, Jeff? I think he can be funny.
He can be funny sometimes. I mean, when he's criticizing things that deserve to be criticized, he's funny. And there's a lot of things that deserve to be criticized. But, he's just kind of immature. He's kind of like an immature person. He's kind of like one of these people who's like one of these males who spends way too much time online, doesn't get out in the real world enough and have enough real world social interaction. And he's created this movement of people like himself. People, young, frustrated, angry males who live online mostly, and don't have good human relationships. Especially don't have good relationships with women, and so they adopt all these antisocial and dysfunctional attitudes, which makes them less appealing. Makes it harder for them to meet anybody interesting or to have a relationship with a woman. So basically, what there are people. The main reason why these people, are socially maladjusted is because of their personality defects and because of the attitudes they adopt, not necessarily because of their appearance or whatever. They're kind of like it's kind of like the whole incel, the involuntary celibate community.
Yeah.
And I think a lot. Frankly, I think when I was listening to Fuentes' discussions about women. I mean, it just was so stupid. It was just like this manosphere garbage he was peddling.
Yeah.
about men have to be the authorities and women should be subordinate. And, it was like somebody who actually had hardly had any real relations with women in their life.
I don't think, well, there are all sorts of rumors about him. But
Right. Being gay or being, whatever. I mean, who cares whether he's gay or not? But the point is,
yeah, I
he's
don't
obvious.
care. But
No, nobody should care. But he's obviously not a person that has extensive experience in relationships with women, because people with extensive experience within relationships with women are not going to just regurgitate these ridiculous talking points from the manosphere, the online manosphere about women.
yeah, but there is something like regarding Fuentes and the Groypers as a movement, quote unquote, if it even is one.
Mhm.
It does seem to me like it's kind of right wing grievance culture,
Oh, absolutely.
in the way that, it's like you're out of the dating pool. It's for
That's
like
right.
basement masturbators.
Yeah, that's right.
He's got
Yeah.
like he has a movement of them, and there is, things are too expensive. There's a lack of opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. And he's sort of encouraging young men just to like give up
Yeah, that's right.
and stay out of it. From a political perspective, do you think that has like real influence?
No, I
And
mean,
the reason I mention that is that I think the worry, bringing this back to Tucker, the Heritage Foundation, like the MAGA establishment now,
yeah, we'll
I
get
think
back.
the
We'll get
fear is
back
that
down.
you bring this, like Fuentes went to the Republican convention,
Right,
he like on a rogue with like, some of his followers to try
right.
and barge through the door. And
That's
like,
right.
he really tried to fuck it up for Trump.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's what he's been trying to do for a long
So
time.
that's what the fear is. Do you think it's like a legit a
No,
political
I
movement with
don't
any
think.
kind of like muscle or no?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he would go to he and his followers would go to turning point events and try to disrupt those by asking provocative questions and embarrass like the speakers and so forth and so forth and so on. I mean, um, that's who he is basically. He's a guy who's a provocateur who is trying to disrupt the conservative establishment, and I don't have any problem with that. The conservative establishment is ridiculous. So but he's doing it from a standpoint that I disagree with. Obviously, consider extreme and don't agree with in any way, shape, or form. So in this, it's sort of like in this particular brouhaha. There's like I'm kind of like laughing about it. It's kind of funny in a way because I don't really agree with any of the parties that are involved in it.
Yeah.
I don't agree with. I'm not a fan of the heritage. I'm not a conservative, not a social conservative. I'm not a religious conservative. So I'm not. I'm just an old-fashioned liberal. So I'm not a fan of like the Heritage Foundation. Sometimes I agree with some of their ideas. A lot of times I don't. Most of the time I probably don't. I'm certainly not agreed with the people who are just like the pro-Israel cheerleaders. I mean, like the Mark Levin and Shapiro and stuff like that. I mean, those people are just like, you can't say anything even remotely critical of Israel without those kind of people accusing you of being anti-Semites. So, I mean, those people are just totally off the deep end themselves. And so, look, in my mind, there's no doubt that Fuentes is anti-Semitic. Even though during the interview with Tucker, he was trying to separate. He was saying, well, he's not a hater and all that. Well, I believe he's not a hater, but the fact of the matter is that he's a person who thinks that like the Jews are in control of American foreign policy. I mean, he believes that. Now, that's not to say that Jewish lobbies don't have a lot of influence on American foreign policy, but to claim that the Jews are like, in control of American foreign policy and that Israel is really, we're really like a puppet of Israel and all that kind of, I mean, that's just ridiculous, And, the question, one of the most ridiculous questions that he and Tucker were saying, because Tucker has that same idea that why are we spending billions of dollars to support Israel? I mean, there's a lot of things about the Israeli policies and actions over the decades that one can criticize. But the fact of the matter is that there's a good reason why the U.S. is supporting Israel, because Israel is the only Western-style democracy in the Arab and Muslim world. And its enemies are America's enemies. I mean, the Islamist groups And first, the Arab nationalists, the anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, and anti-Israeli Arab nationalists like the Baathists and Nasser and all. They were also anti-Western. Now the Islamists have displaced the secular Arab nationalists as the number one threat. Theocratic, religious totalitarians, and so the enemies of Israel, like Hezbollah, the Shia Islamists, and Hamas, the Sunni Islamists, and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and the Iranian regime, they're our enemies. They're the enemies of America, and the Israelis are doing a pretty good job of keeping those groups from gaining too much power. And when they do engage in violence and cause trouble, the Israelis smack them down pretty hard. And so, as far as I'm concerned, they're doing the work, the job that needs to be done. The Islamists are the number one right-wing revolutionary movement in the world, the most dangerous right-wing revolutionary movement in the world, and one that's thoroughly. It's an Islamic imperialist movement. It's anti-infidel movement, and it's a theocratic, totalitarian, right-wing fundamentalist movement. And so anybody who's attacking
Mamdani is part of that.
Mamdani is definitely part of that. Mamdani is definitely he's one of these dumb leftists who is linking developed displaying solidarity with theocratic right-wing religious fanatics. I don't know that he himself is an Islamist, but he certainly has no problem rubbing shoulders with Islamists. I mean, he was rubbing shoulders with Siraj Wahhaj, the unindicted co-conspirator of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. All these radical Islamists. He colludes with Linda Sarsour and all these kinds of people. I mean, he's made inflammatory pro-Hamas statements and anti-Jewish statements. So he's one of these ridiculous leftists like the Queers for Palestine and all these other secular leftists who stupidly think that that theocratic Islamists are their allies just because they're anti-Western. I mean, that's the one thing the left and the radical left and the Islamists have in common is they hate the West. But otherwise, they have literally nothing in
common. There's this thing called taqiyya, which is where in Islam where you can lie to non-believers about your true intentions in order to conquer.
Yes.
Which I think someone like Mehdi Hassan, there are those videos of him calling non-believers cattle and all of this stuff.
Yeah, Mehdi Hassan.
He's back in Pakistan, and now he's here in a suit as an American citizen, like pretending to be some kind of like, normal figure.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
Do you think Mamdani is one of those? I guess it's impossible to know, but do you think he's one of those? Like,
I think Mehdi Hassan is an Islamist. I think that Ilhan Omar is an Islamist. I think that Sarsour is an Islamist, and these are people who basically, one of the things that the Islamists have been very adept at doing is borrowing the grievance rhetoric of the left. They've really embraced like all this ridiculous anti-Western grievance identity politics that the left has been pushing, and so they use the kind of rhetoric that the left uses, and that easily fools the left into thinking that they're really allies of the left. Look, if the Islamists took power, every place the Islamists take power, the first people to be killed are leftists and secularists. I mean, look at the Iranian Revolution.
Iran, yeah.
All these people, there was a big coalition that supported or anti-Shah coalition, and Khomeini and the Islamists became the dominant group within that anti-Shah coalition. And the moment they took power, they started exterminating the communists and getting rid of the liberals and getting rid of all these people on the left who were opposed to the Shah. I mean, everywhere the Islamists are, they kill infidels and they kill anybody who opposes them. And they think homosexuality is a sin. They think women should be subordinated to men, and it's okay to beat women. I mean, they believe all this unbelievably reactionary garbage.
I think this is all like a subconscious dream for a white liberal woman.
Well, I think what it is
I think it's a bizarre unconscious or subconscious fantasy.
Maybe. I think it also has to do with like ethnomasochism. I mean, there's a certain kind of like guilty white progressive who like feels guilty about themselves and they're in group. They feel guilty about their privileges. They feel guilty about their group, which supposedly they've internalized all this nonsense about their group being oppressors, so they have all this guilt, and they somehow feel like maybe they should be punished, in some way, like you're suggesting, or maybe there's a sexual, who knows, with women there might be some weird sexual thing involved in it with some of these people, but yeah, I mean, it's just utterly, but how can you explain gay activists? I mean, when the Islamists take power, they throw gay people off of buildings, the tops of tall buildings. They hang them in Iran. They stone them to death. I mean, who the hell would be a homosexual and be supporting Hamas if they weren't utterly delusional? I mean, utterly naive,
It's like
utterly
the dumb
ignorant.
world that we live in now.
The world we live in now is that most people don't know nothing about history. They don't know anything about Islam. They know nothing about Islamist ideology, and they apparently don't even have learned nothing from the tens of thousands of terrorist attacks that jihadists have committed all over the world in the last several decades, targeting either Muslims that they consider not sufficiently Islamic, or targeting infidels, non-believers of all kinds.
Yeah.
So, and of course, I mean, like, again, when you look at what the Islamic State did when they took power in parts of Iraq and Syria, they were just massacring and exterminating people, beheading people, and just trying to destroy pre-Islamic cultural artifacts, and this is what's in store. This would be what's in store for these dimwit leftists if the Islamists ever took power in any Western country. And so when you see that kind of suicidal empathy, like Godsad, refers to it as suicidal empathy, where you empathize with all of these people who hate you, hate your culture, hate your civilization, hate your race, hate your religion. I mean, to the extent that suicidal empathy spreads, and it's already entrenched in all of our institutions. I mean, to the extent that it spreads, it's basically going to lead to the demographic and cultural suicide of the West. I mean, that's really what's going to happen. But anyway, let's get back to Fuentes for a moment.
Yeah. So a couple of questions on Fuentes and Tucker. So I thought the Heritage Foundation video was ridiculous and absurd that they even put a video out. No one
I thought so too.
To apologize or voice their support for Tucker.
Right.
Also, of course, I don't think Tucker can interview whoever he wants. Mm-hmm. But the statement from the Heritage Foundation was like, we stand with Tucker Carlson. We will always stand with Tucker Carlson. And I was like, is this a mafia? Is MAGA like a mafia and Tucker's a
Mason? First of all, I don't consider the Heritage Foundation to be MAGA.
You don't? You consider it to be, what do you consider it to be?
I consider it to be just normie establishment conservative think tank. I mean, it's a little bit to the right of the American Enterprise Institute, but it's certainly not populist. I mean, they've now adopted a populist veneer because Trump has been president and everything like that. But this is, the Heritage Foundation is just an establishment conservative institution. It's not populist. It's not MAGA. It's only MAGA for convenience sake, as far as
right. But they have the statement defending Tucker and saying that they support him no matter what. I think is Tucker an intellectual pillar of American conservatism or something?
No. I mean, he's actually become
beyond. Is it not okay is he beyond criticism?
No, but I don't think that's what they were saying. I mean, in other words, I think it was formulated stupidly. What they should have said was that that we support Tucker Carlson's right to interview whoever he wants to, and we also will criticize him when we think his ideas about various things are incorrect. I mean, that would have been the statement to make if you were going to make any public statement.
Yeah, or none. I think none.
Or none. Yeah, there was literally no reason to make any.
Care.
There was no reason for them to make any statement at all. And then that statement then infuriated like the Shapiros of the world, who then doubled down on their allegations of anti-Semitism and so forth and so on, the usual stuff that they do about everything. Anytime anybody says, like I said, anytime anybody's even mildly critical of Israel or says anything about Jewish influence or about disproportionate representation of Jews in various institutions, that's automatically anti-Semitic for these people. I mean, you can't even make factual statements without being accused of being anti-Semitic. So, but then you've got these people like Fuentes and Tucker were both basically agreeing that like Israel was committing genocide.
So, Jeff, here's something
totally
I want to
ridiculous.
ask you. Like, I just can't quite, I just don't quite understand this. So, I agree that Shapiro and certainly Levin is the one who called for Tucker to be canceled. I think
Right.
he's an off-putting lunatic and a terrible representative for Jews. He's like a caricature. At the same time, there are real anti-Semites.
Oh,
Like, it's not the
absolutely.
case that there aren't anti-Semites.
Of
But
course.
this is the question I have, and one that I don't understand. So, American Jews should understand that they have a spiritual connection to the land of Israel, but everybody else doesn't. The evangelicals do, but there's this seemingly eagerness to have people connect the special relationship with Israel and feel some kind of connection to it beyond or instead of focusing on what the strategic benefit to America is
Of course.
by having an alliance with Israel, which is to me, it's undeniably America first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we get for $6.5 billion, I think 75% of that money goes to the American defense industry.
Mm-hmm.
We get all of the Israeli intelligence, all of the access to their technology,
Mm-hmm.
and we have basically like a base in the Middle East.
Correct.
And if you took it away, it's a no-brainer. If you were going through like the list on the Department of Defense for the government, if you went through you would just, of course, obviously, we would do this.
Yeah, it
no troops on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
right.
And then what would it? This is what I wanted. So, like, this is what I wanted to ask you. What would it look like if tomorrow the U.S. said, "Okay, we're breaking our relationship with Israel. No more funding." And actually, we don't have their back, so there won't be an aircraft carrier strike group going to Israel if they're under threat. Geopolitically, I'm guessing that energy prices would spike. Russia and China would flood in to the Middle East as a sphere of influence.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, this would damage the very American consumer who is MAGA and a populist and voted for Trump for their own economic interests because they feel left behind.
Mm.
So, like, to me, this is just an obvious America first position. It's not like I understand, some of the agitation around Israel, but this seems like an obvious America first position to me.
Well, I would actually agree with that. I mean,
what would the consequences
when you got an ally which is doing
from Israel tomorrow? What would that look like?
I don't know. I mean, it's really hard. That would be something that's really even hard to foresee. I mean, it's not like the Israelis can't survive without U.S. aid. It's not like their military and technological advantages are going to suddenly disappear. It's not like their intelligence networks that they used so effectively recently to take out the leaders of Hamas and Hezbollah and Iranian clerics and Revolutionary Guard leaders and stuff like that. That stuff's still going to be in place. But, I mean, for example, without the Israelis, we wouldn't have been able to carry out the strike against the Iranian nuclear facilities because they had done so much preliminary work taking out the Iranian air defenses and provided us with intelligence about where things were, and then we had certain technological capabilities that they didn't have to with these bunker busting bombs and so forth and so on. I mean, to me, it's just like it's a natural geopolitical alliance, and of course, it's also true that it's understandable that Jews everywhere in the world would have some kind of emotional connection to the only Jewish state, There was, in a sense, was created as a way to prevent like future persecutions of Jews if they should occur in other countries. And so I mean, all those things are perfectly understandable. And yes, you're 100% right. I mean, there are a lot of anti-Semites. I mean, there's a lot of anti-Semites on the left and the right. On the left, they tend to disguise their anti-Semitism, I mean, as anti-Zionism. Now there is a difference between anti-Zionism. I mean, you can be critical of Zionism as an ideology. You can be critical of Israeli policy. That's perfectly legitimate. But if you're obsessively focused only on Israel and only on Israel's alleged crimes and abuses of power, and you're ignoring the horrendous abuses of power and atrocities committed in all the neighboring states and by jihadist groups and so forth and so on, and by other countries, other parts of the world. I mean, the obsessive focus on Israel in terms of demonization and denouncing Israel for carrying out actions that other groups are vastly more guilty of. I mean, that to me, that's anti-Semitism. Why would you, if you were really concerned about human rights, you'd be focusing more attention right now on Sudan than you would on the Gaza Strip.
Yeah,
that's the reality of it. You'd be focusing more attention on the jihadist atrocities in Nigeria and all these other states in Africa. But the fact that these people don't care about any of those things, they don't care about the fact that the jihadists that are running Syria are persecuting and killing the Druze.
Well, that guy's at the White House today or something.
I know. To me, that is just an appalling thing. I mean, there's two areas where I just feel that in terms of the Middle Eastern policy, that Trump has completely got his head up his ass. And one of them, of course, is this relationship with Qatar. I mean, Qatar is like one of the epicenters of Islamism in the world. It's one of the epicenters of funding of Islamist groups. It's Al Jazeera is based in Qatar. It spends a lot of money in the U.S. supporting anti-American and pro-Islamist causes, and money in universities to corrupt Middle East studies departments. I mean, there's literally no reason in the world why any American statesman or president or politician should view Qatar as an American ally. And then this jackass in Syria. I mean, anybody who thinks that this guy's a moderate is like is literally delusional. I mean, there's really no difference between having this guy there and having the leaders of Al Qaeda or other leaders of the Islamic State or leaders of the Islamic State in Khorasan and welcoming them to the White House. I mean, it's just utterly delusional thinking. And you would think that with some of the people that they have in this administration in the counterterrorism section, like Gorka, you would think that they would know better, that somebody would be telling Trump, look, man, what are you doing? I mean, this is the kind of ridiculous appeasement of Islamists that the Obama people were involved in, and that and Biden, and I mean, it just literally makes no sense at all. And I'm waiting for somebody to provide me with a single good reason why the U.S. should view the new regime in Syria or Qatar regime as anything but an enemy.
Yeah. Going back to Fuentes, Jeff, do you think he's punk? Does he fit that description or no?
Oh God, no. He's such a uptight normie dude. I mean, like his attitude about drugs, his attitude about porn. I mean, he's such a square. He's such a cultural square. I mean, there's nothing.
But isn't that punk? Like, wouldn't that his contrarian kind of attitude be? Could it be considered a punk?
Well, I don't. I mean, if you identify everything contrarian with punk, then yeah. But I don't think so. I mean, there are certain things that you wouldn't expect. I mean, there's a lot of subgroups within the punk movement that I consider to be completely absurd. Straight edge movement, and like this kind of puritanical, like no alcohol, no sex, no drugs. I mean, whoever heard of something like that in a youth a rock and roll oriented youth subculture. I mean, or counterculture. It's like utterly absurd. Or like the kind of like censorious radical feminist elements, within the punk milieu, or like the violent Antifa elements. I mean, it's one thing to if you're being attacked on the streets by right-wing skinheads to fight back and to attack them, but it's another thing to to behave like the Antifas are now behaving. I mean, not that most of them are have anything to do with punk, but some of them come from that background. And I mean, just because something's contrarian doesn't make it punk. I mean, wearing a 3-piece suit and having a corporate job and just because it's not something because it's totally establishment. So I mean, you can say, well, I'm going to embrace all the ridiculous things or the goofiest things, the most characteristic things of the establishment, just as a protest. But it's really not punk to do that, I don't think.
I thought maybe his.
I mean, there has to be an oppositional.
He is anti-establishment, like his.
He is anti-establishment, but he's got nothing to do with. I mean, all kinds of people like conventional neo-Nazis are anti-establishment. Guys that walk around with Nazi swastikas and Hitler mustaches. People who are. I mean, Islamists are anti-establishment. Islamists are trying to overthrow Muslim regimes everywhere in the world. That doesn't make them punk.
Yeah.
Christian fundamentalists are anti-establishment in the context of a secular society, right? But it doesn't make them punk, obviously.
What is the if you were like a MAGA strategist and you were concerned about Fuentes and his lot kind of like growing influence in the movement, and you wanted to keep them out of it so that they don't alienate these kind of moderates that have wound up voting for MAGA and for Trump, what is the way, like, what is the mechanism for doing that without being like a scoldy, censorious, like Mark Levin type?
Well, I see. I think it's incumbent upon any decent political movement to keep fringes on the margins. I mean, any decent society that aims to preserve people's rights, individual rights, and constitutional government and things like that needs to keep extremists of all kinds on the margins and fringes. And so, whether you're on the right or the left side of the political spectrum, it's important to isolate and marginalize extremist elements. That's one of the problems with the left. They're not marginalizing extremist elements. The extremist elements are infiltrating into the Democratic Party now, the Democratic Socialists of America, and all these crackpot groups.
So where's the line? Like, what's the line just to keep these people out of like the RNC and Republican events or something? Like, what is?
Well, I see. There's a whole nother problem because again, I mean, yeah, I mean, you don't want. You want to basically identify who extremists are. You want to be able to identify people who are extremists and say these are not the kind of people we want in our movement, whatever your movement is. That doesn't mean that they should be censored and nobody should talk to them, or that. But you need to prevent extremists from infiltrating like a more moderate political movement. I think that's just absolutely incumbent upon any political movement or political party. You don't want fringe groups of extremists to infiltrate the party and subvert the party and take it over. Now, then that raises the question of the parties. I mean, speaking for me, I'm not a fan of the Democrat or the Republican parties. I mean, I really can't stand the Republican establishment. I can't stand the Democrat establishment. But I would like to see in the Democrat, I would like to see actual moderates in the Democrat Party. There's hardly any left. I mean, Fetterman, maybe one or two others. I mean, who are the moderates in the Democrat Party now? It's up to the moderates in the Democrat Party to keep extremists from entering, infiltrating, and corrupting the party. Extremists like Omar and people like that. I mean, or Mamdani. I mean, if a mainstream political party can't keep extremists from taking it over, then it's not going to be a mainstream party any longer. It's going to become an extremist party, which is what the Democrats are becoming, an increasingly extremist party. I mean, look at that jackass who was elected as the Attorney General of Virginia, the guy who wrote those social media things, advocating that like the Virginia Speaker of the House should be killed. He and his family should be killed. That should automatically disqualify anybody for political office. Any party should immediately disqualify anybody who advocates assassinating or killing people.
Agree.
I mean, that should just be and the fact that all these Democrat establishment figures rallied behind this guy.
Those texts were deranged also.
They were totally deranged. So, but the
that guy is like a psycho.
He is a psycho.
Yeah.
And the fact that, number one, the establishment Democrats did not denounce him and expel him from the party and rallied around him, and the fact that Democrat voters voted for him. they
don't give a shit. I think they've dehumanized their adversaries.
Precisely. And, so that's why I say you've got this, just like after the Kirk assassination, you've got this huge swath of the liberal progressives who vote Democratic, who are cheering on like the assassination of this guy. I mean, that's just, that's a sign that the Democrat Party has gone off the deep end. It's been taken over by radical ideologues. Their voters are now embracing extremist ideas, pro-violence ideas. I mean, the Democrat Party is nothing like the Democrat Party under Clinton, and that's why so many people left the Democrat Party. I mean, like me. I mean, I was an independent, but I voted for the Democrats all the way up through Obama's second term, which I regret now. But I couldn't bear to vote for Mitt Romney. I mean, I didn't like Obama. After his first term, I realized he was not a moderate. He was not going to unite the country. He was already shown that he was a divider, and he was a racial arsonist, and he was opposing like DEI and all this kind of stuff on government agencies, appointing radicals in various government agencies like Brennan. I mean, Brennan, can you imagine appointing a guy as head of the CIA who'd voted for Gus Hall, the Communist Party USA candidate?
He voted for a Communist Party? Really?
Yeah, when he was younger. He voted for Gus Hall, the Communist Party USA candidate. How does a guy like that end up as
people in jail? Like anyone who broke the law. Mm-hmm. This is like a big issue for me. I want anyone from the deep state who broke the law during the last 8 years
to be in
within
jail.
The limitations to be prosecuted.
I agree with you.
If convicted, to go to fucking jail.
That's what I want to see too. But I don't want it to be like a vindictive persecutory thing. Like
if they broke the law, they should be prosecuted.
Right. That's right. In other words, don't wage malicious lawfare.
Like
the Democrats did, but just go after the really guilty people who committed verifiable crimes and put those people in prison.
100%.
Because if those people are allowed to get away with what they did, then they're going to be doing it in the future. There's no deterrence.
No, and I think this is why, in order to restore balance to the country, we have to have kind of, as much as we can, universal agreement on what transpired here.
Yes, that's right.
And there have to be consequences. And then once that is universally recognized, then you can move forward as a country.
Yeah, the problem
without it, we have two different versions of reality that we're working off of.
That's exactly right. And the problem is go ahead.
Yeah, and I don't trust. I'm disappointed with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. I just don't know if they have the right people to do it. But that's one of the biggest things for me. Certainly, is some kind of prosecution and justice for the January 6th stuff and all of the spying.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
the
basically,
illegal, like,
all
basically
that.
the intervention of the CIA and the
Correct.
intelligence community on an American election and an
Correct.
elected president, like the subversion of our democracy.
That's right. And
That
running
has to be rectified, or there's no moving forward together.
correct. I mean, these people ran anti-constitutional covert operations against Trump when he was a candidate, and they continued doing it when he was president. And this is a much bigger scandal than Watergate, for example. It's one of the biggest political scandals in American history. And not only did none of these people get prosecuted and jailed, they wrote books about how noble they were and made money off it. You know,
Yes,
I mean, it's just an absolute.
it's
But
sickening.
the real villains here are the media, though. I mean, the media has been peddling the false narratives, the Trump-Russia collusion narrative. They've been peddling that crap from the beginning and covering up the crimes of these people in these government agencies, the Comey and Strzok and Page and McCabe and Brennan and Clapper and all of these people, these despicable people who abuse their authority for partisan political purposes and try to subvert democracy. All those people should be in prison. And the fact that they're not in prison, I mean, but if you talk to people who just read the New York Times, like all these brainwashed progressives, and they read the New York Times and listen to NPR and watch MSNBC, I mean, you would not even know. They literally do not even know that these people committed egregious and grievous crimes against the Constitution.
Not only do they not know, these people are feted as if they were some sort of like freedom
Exactly.
fighters or something.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's obscene.
I mean, it really is obscene. Like the fact, the fact that Comey can pretend like his prosecution is a vindictive prosecution, when everything he and his cohorts were doing was utterly vindictive for years, and now he's finally being brought to justice belatedly, and not even for his serious crimes, it's just for fucking perjury. I mean, the only thing he's being charged with is perjury, lying to Congress, and that's the least of his fucking crimes. You know. So to me, it's just mind-boggling, the chutzpah of these people, the abusive
and then
power.
at the same time, all the consequences paid by people who spoke out about this, who've lost careers, personal relationships, gone to jail, whatever, were censored in the Twitter files.
Correct.
All of the damage from that.
Yes. And the funny thing is, it's not funny, but the thing is that all these people, all these brainwashed progressives, and the never Trump conservatives, quote, those people supported all this abuse of power, and they're still peddling the same lies about what happened that they had peddled from the beginning, despite massive amount of documentary evidence showing what actually happened and how illegal all this stuff was, and the utterly abusive behavior of these people. And people just have no clue about actually what happened. And and so yeah, they act, and these also, but these people, when Biden was engaged in blatant political persecution of his domestic opponents and trying to create the censorship industrial complex, all these same people were cheering it on. They were cheering every witch hunt prosecution against Trump and his supporters. They were cheering the January 6th, the persecution of nonviolent January 6th protesters. They were cheering on all the abuses of power in the Biden administration. All these brainwashed progressives, the ones who are cheering on Charlie Kirk's assassin.
They're so brainwashed that they've dehumanized anyone that is MAGA or on the right in this country. It's fucking scary.
Anybody who's not an illiberal progressive, even if you're a classical liberal, you're considered far right now, like me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so ridiculous,
It's a weird. I know it's like, this is all there is to talk about, because we now live in this bizarro reality where you're like, you're careful about who you speak to, and then you forget sometimes and just go out into the world and have a normal conversation about what you think, and then somebody starts looking at you funny.
Yeah.
When it veers over to politics, and you're just like, oh, this person's out of their fucking mind, and thinks I'm like, a Nazi or a Jewish Nazi.
Yeah, exactly. I
Um,
mean, but these people are so irrational and they're so brainwashed, and they're hate-filled bigots. A lot of these progressives are just hate-filled
yes.
bigots. They think of themselves as being the world's most compassionate, tolerant, and humanitarian people, but they're literally the most narrow-minded bigots I've ever. I mean, they're every bit as narrow-minded and bigoted as Christian fundamentalists and Islamists. I mean, religious.
Yeah, they're nasty.
Yeah, they're really nasty people, and like there was a. I think this was all epitomized in this one video that somebody posted of a woman with this "Make America Kind Again" shirt, and she was taking a stick and beating like an effigy of Trump. That's
Well,
kindness.
at least we have Twitter to kind of like,
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
God
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
Elon. We can
I
like
know.
connect
Uh,
on that. Do
but
you?
it's unbelievable, really, the utter cluelessness of these people, their absolute utter lack of self-reflection, and their total hypocrisy. I mean, these are the same people who think Trump is like some kind of is a fascist, and a king.
Yeah,
The same people who were enthusiastically supporting all these abuses of powers by the establishment, by the U.S. government, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, and by
yeah,
the Democrats. They were cheering on abuses of power, uh, and violations of the rights of other American citizens, and now they're pretending to be opposed to authoritarianism. I mean, give me a fucking break.
yeah. What
So
Jeff, I have a couple more questions for you that I want to cover. Um, what do you find? I find very few things funny anymore in the culture, because everything's captured. And
yeah,
even the comedians we have, I don't even think are very funny. Like the Andrew Schultz, Theo Vaughn. I think Tim Dillon's kind of funny and has like decent commentary. But this is what I brought up, this aspect of Fuentes, because I think he's sometimes like fucking hilarious.
hmm,
Him and they're like Owen Benjamin, if you know him, he was canceled by Hollywood. He's like an anti-Semite also, but he's funny. So I'm in this bizarre uh, world where I'm like, I'm Jew. I'm not religious, but I'm Jewish. I
sure.
don't feel offended. Like I don't get offended,
Hmm.
and I don't even believe. I don't even think these people believe what they say anyway. Like half the time, it's almost like sort of watching professional wrestling.
You mean
Uh,
like people just being basically provocateurs or
being
something?
provocateurs. Like I find Milo funny.
Milo used to be really funny. Yeah, Milo was
Um,
was, was funny.
And I find like I used to listen to Red Scare, that podcast. Like those two girls
Uh,
they're smart and funny. I don't know if you've
yeah,
ever listened to that, but
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. They're okay. Um, but I don't listen to comics and comedians anyway. I mean, like
you don't.
I've never liked stand-up comedians. I've never liked any of that crap. I mean, my girlfriend uh, told me about this guy Mike McIntyre, some British guy. I watched a couple of his. He's not political. He doesn't talk about politics, but
Yeah,
that made me laugh out loud. That was laugh out loud funny, kind of like Lenny Bruce or some of the people, or even Red Fox, or some of these people were really funny. This guy was really funny. It wasn't political humor though. Political humor doesn't work. I mean, you can be like a funny guy and make funny, humorous remarks about political events. I mean, even Jay Leno, I thought was pretty funny because he would have those monologues at the beginning of his show, and he would make fun of both parties and make fun of everybody. He wasn't partisan. He would just like satirize like the most ridiculous things that politicians on both sides of the aisle were doing and
yeah,
saying, and it was funny. And then he had that jaywalking segment where he'd go out into the street and ask people like the most easy questions in the world to answer, and people just couldn't answer the simplest. I mean, it just shows you the shocking levels of ignorance on so many
well, now we
people.
have scoldy bitches and
Oh yeah, yeah,
propagandists that are
yeah.
like the comedians in the culture.
Oh God, yeah, they're horrible. I mean,
Um,
they're not funny. They're just peddling a
where they're
bunch of
like trying to be serious and political and
yeah,
like
like
hate speech and
Colbert and Kimmel and that
terrible,
that John Oliver guy. They're just like they're
terrible.
like total cringe, man. They're like
Yeah.
total cringe. There's nothing even remotely. remotely funny about them. So,
Yeah.
but I still
No.
hear a lot of funny stuff. I mean, I have a very robust sense of humor and a very dark sense of humor. So I laugh at all kinds of things that I think are funny, even when people are espousing them in a serious way. And then I laugh. I laugh at a lot of rock and roll songs. The lyrics in lots of punk and underground rock and roll songs are hilarious, man. I mean, they're really funny, you
Yeah.
know. And so, I actually laugh a lot. Um, but I have to say that when you listen to these, these like the bogus comedians, like the late night talk shows, I don't listen to them at all. I never watch those shows. But when you're paying attention to real world political figures, I mean, Trump is funny. Trump is actually really
He's
funny.
fucking funny. Yeah.
I mean, he's self-deprecating. I mean, he's a braggart and a boaster, but he's also self-deprecating. He
Yeah.
makes fun of himself. He's pretty quick-witted. He comes back with clever repartees. I mean, he's actually probably the funniest politician we have. I mean, I had my opinion in America here.
Yeah.
Oh, John Kennedy, the guy from Louisiana. You know that
John
guy?
Kennedy. I don't know.
He's
I'll
a
have to look
senator
him
from
up.
Louisiana. He is like the funniest guy in the world, man.
Oh, the
He's like,
senator. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he's like that
The
folksy.
devil's
He's got that
lettuce.
folksy humor, but it's
Yeah,
really
smoking the
biting.
devil's lettuce guy.
Yeah, I think that might be the guy. But like when he was talking about when Doge was making cuts, and all these people were whining and complaining, he goes, well, when the fat is cut, the pigs squeal. I mean, he's like a hoot, man. That guy is like one of the
Yeah,
funniest politicians in
he's a
America.
character, but I think he's got a little. I'm not happy about his relationship to the pharma companies. He's got like a little.
Oh, well, I didn't even know about that. So.
They're all captured in some one way or
Well, I'm
or
sure they
another.
are. I mean, that's the problem. We have the best Congress money can buy,
Yeah.
as I like to say.
Um,
That's
Jeff,
not good.
last question.
Hmm.
I'm curious, as a historian, I was
Hmm.
thinking about all the revisionism that's happened, in the last couple of years,
Hmm.
mostly on podcasts. Like there's that guy, Daryl Cooper, who's been
Oh,
on Tucker a few times, but there's a
yeah.
lot of revisionism around World War II, the
Hmm.
Holocaust, a number of different subjects.
Hmm.
And what I'm curious about is, what is the difference, basically? What is the methodology that you had to follow as a historian that basically creates a historical narrative that is sort of verifiable, quote unquote, because it's all like sort of nebulous
Well,
versus
the first thing you have to do is examine like a vast range of primary sources. You have to examine all the documentary evidence and firsthand testimony and all these various sources that are contemporaneous with events that they describe. And you have to have a very in-depth familiarity with the source materials. And then all these sources have their own strengths and weaknesses and biases and flaws, and you have to evaluate all sources with a critical eye. There's a process of internal source criticism, and then there's external source criticism where you're triangulating information provided by diverse sources, and where they all agree that you can generally think that it's pretty reliable. There's areas where they have disparate accounts, but it's a very complex. There's a historical methodology which is fairly complicated and rigorous. It's one that nobody teaches hardly anymore. I mean, maybe some historians are still trained that way, but apart from historians, as far as I can tell, nobody is trained in how to in source criticism, how to evaluate sources, and that's part of the problem. People don't know what to believe and what not to believe. They believe whatever they want to believe. They have no ability to distinguish between reliable sources and unreliable sources, and that's why there's so much. It's so easy to end up with peddling nonsense, revisionist nonsense about history, you know. But and a lot of people basically they just cherry pick. They pick and choose information from sources that agree with whatever they support whatever argument they're making, and then conveniently ignore all the sources that that undermine what they believe. So that's the other problem, is that people are not using forces. Most people do not use sources in a balanced way. And they don't really have they've never been trained with methodologies about how to actually do source evaluation. And so that's why you have people peddling things like forgeries or things that are sources that are obviously biased, and taking them at face value, you know. And so there's legitimate historical revisionism, and I mean, all historical accounts and things and interpretations are subject to reinterpretation, and that's what historians do. They stand on the shoulders of other historians, and they refine information, and create some new interpretations that sometimes radically alter pre-existing and accepted interpretations. But normally it's a question of increasing, developing more and more nuances and increasing refinement of reliable work that's been done in the past, you know. And but a lot of this historical revisionism, I mean, there's legitimate Holocaust revisionism. In other words, people that challenge some biased accounts that people made about, like people were claiming that like there was extermination, that certain camps were involved in extermination that were actually labor camps that were not extermination camps, things like that. So there are legitimate ways to critique certain accounts by survivors and by other people with vested interests. But that's a different thing than like denying the Holocaust, or claiming that the whole thing is a hoax, and you know, or doubting that the Nazis intended to round up Jews and either expel them or eliminate them. I mean, that's just anybody who denies that was part of a Nazi plan is just delusional. I mean, so again, and so this kind of historical revisionism, which is like trying to portray Hitler as a good guy. And I mean, look, there are reasons why Hitler adopted the policies he adopted. The Germany was treated unfairly by the Allies after World War II and made to suffer. And they built up a lot of resentment, and there were a lot of things that the Allied countries did that were not wise or unwise. And so you can sort of understand the appeal of somebody, especially in the midst of the Depression, where you have like this enforced political weakness with this coupled with economic crisis. You can understand why somebody who's appealing to German nationalism and saying that he's going to strengthen Germany and get the country out of the Depression and out of the vice of the Versailles settlement and all. You can see how that would be appealing to people. But you know, I mean, that doesn't mean that. I mean, if you read Mein Kampf, you can see clearly what Hitler's racial ideology was, and so forth and so on. And you know, to try to portray like Hitler as like an innocent victim of like Allied machinations, or it's all the Bolsheviks' fault, or you know, whatever. There's all these different ways of trying to revise this. I mean, a lot of those things are just like a mistake. I mean, there's always been some people on the right who argued that the Allies were on the wrong side during World War II, that we should have joined with the Germans to destroy the Bolsheviks instead of allying with the Bolsheviks to destroy the Nazis. You know, I mean, there are people who think that we were winning on the wrong side of that war. And you know, if you view communism as the number one enemy, then that's a position, you know, one could conceivably support. But the point is that all these alliances are the product of geopolitical interests. I mean, so for example, we allied with the Bolsheviks, who had previously been regarded as an enemy. We allied with the Bolsheviks because we consider the Nazis to be a greater immediate threat. And then after we destroyed the Axis powers, then we recruited former Nazis to fight against the Soviets, because then the Soviets were considered the number one threat. I mean, that's how alliance structures work. You know, the enemy of my main enemy is my temporary friend.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah.
You know.
And what are as far as checks and balances? So if you're devoted to one area of history, theoretically you publish material, it's
correct,
peer reviewed, or you have other experts in your field that read your work, and there's debated
Correct.
discussion over it, and it kind of takes on this kind
That's
of
right.
this life rather
Right.
than
And
like
that's part of the
just
healthy, that's
podcast.
part of the healthy process. That's part of the
Right.
healthy
Those are the
process.
checks and balances that are now missing
Totally missing.
from sort of podcast history or
But
whatever.
they're also missing in academia, because now there's now there's been so much ideological corruption of academia that peer review itself has become like a joke. I mean, you wouldn't believe the number of utterly idiotic articles that are published in the so-called social sciences that are just nothing but pure political propaganda. They have no scholarly merit at all. They have no scientific merit at all. And yet they get published because they're reviewed by people that share the ideological delusions of the authors. So the whole peer review process has been completely and utterly corrupted as well now. And I mean, there's a guy who posts as a podcast too, but he posts stuff on X all the time. Finds all these ridiculous articles that are published in academic journals. I mean, you can't even imagine how absurd they are. The
Well,
fact that
that's some
anybody,
comedy.
yeah, it's mostly just like grievance studies propaganda, just completely worthless from any kind of scientific or scholarly standpoint, um, and um, and yet the stuff just passes through and gets published. I mean, it's just and that was revealed by the thing that Boghossian and Helen Pluckrose and Lindsay did when they created all those phony articles. They created a bunch of ridiculous articles where they borrowed all this left-wing intersectional jargon and feminist rhetoric and whatever queer studies rhetoric and submitted completely nonsensical articles to leading journals in those fields. Something like 9 out of the 20 articles actually got published, or 8.
Yeah,
I,
we're
I can't
accepted.
remember the number that got
Yeah.
published. One of them had to do with something about rape and having to do with dog behavior in a Portland park or something. It's just like,
Yeah. Well, now this will all be fed to AI, and this will become
yeah,
the
exactly.
truth.
Well, just like all the propaganda in Wikipedia. I mean, if you go to like the Grok stuff, or the not the one that Elon's created, but the other AI programs, the ones that you get now when you do a search at the top of the page. There's
Yeah. Gemini, I think, is the
Yeah, a lot of that just comes straight from Wikipedia,
yeah.
uh, depending on the topic. And of course, if it comes from Wikipedia, it's, any every topic with political salience, uh, the coverage in Wikipedia is completely biased and one-sided. I mean, you can't trust anything in Wikipedia that deals with controversial, politically salient topics.
Yeah. I
If you're
guess
talking, if you're
Grokpedia
talking,
is
yeah, it's supposedly better, and I haven't looked at it, but supposedly it's better. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. If you look at topics that are obscure topics about past events or something, you can look something up in Wikipedia, and it's basically just factual information. But anything that involves evaluation of current political issues, I mean, it's complete propaganda now.
yeah.
Even the co-founder of Wikipedia has been saying that for like over a decade now.
Yeah,
And
there
it's
was
just,
that terrible woman from
oh God, yeah, the one
NPR
who's the
that
head of
took over
NPR.
and was like, what
Mhm.
if facts don't matter?
Yeah, exactly.
These people are just like, they're so nasty.
They're nasty, and more importantly, this is all derives from this ridiculous postmodernism thing. Well, I mean, it goes back longer, because for extremists, the ideology always trumps facts. Everything is viewed through an ideological prism and an ideological filter, which corrupts and distorts it. And so, when you're dealing with political and religious extremists, um, facts are much less important than the maintenance of their ideological worldview. You know, but then you have the whole phenomenon of postmodernism. The whole idea that there's no objective reality and everything's subjective and it's all about power relations and blah blah blah, which is basically from an epistemological standpoint is leads to a situation where everybody could it justifies everybody just pushing their own views and their own beliefs, because there's no objective reality out there, and it's all subjective anyway. So if it's all subjective, we might as well just push our own subjective narrative, and not
Yeah.
worry about facts. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember when when I took an introductory sociology course, even though I'm a historian, I took an introductory sociology course. It was like sociological theory at Berkeley. And the professor, started out with this radical epistemological thing like Paul Feyerabend and so forth and so on. The whole thing that there's no objective reality out there. Everything is just based on our perceptions of reality and all this kind of stuff. There is no objective reality. And I, being a historian, I laughed out loud, and I immediately challenged the professor. I said, if you think there's no objective reality, then you can mix certain you can mix hydrogen and chlorine in certain proportions and get hydrochloric acid, and then you could put your finger. You could say, well, there's no objective reality. Put your finger in and see if it doesn't burn your finger. I said, or you can say, I'm socially constructing this reality around me. Well, that wall's socially constructed. It doesn't really exist. That wall's socially constructed. So why not just run straight for full speed into it and bash into it? I mean, the idea that there's no objective reality. I mean, it's just like an utterly absurd proposition, and yet that's the kind of nonsense that you hear in many of the social sciences, and it's been going on now for decades. The whole postmodern nonsense. Nothing is degraded intellectual life in the universities more than postmodernism.
Well, it sounds like we have a bright future ahead of us.
I don't think we do. I know you're joking, and I don't think we have a bright future ahead of us at all. I think I think we have. I think the West is committing demographic and cultural suicide right before our eyes. I think we have like insane levels of political polarization and partisanship. We have just like absolute derangement on the left side of the spectrum and on some parts of the right side of the spectrum. And I don't see how you can put this thing back together again. I really don't. And, like I joke, I might have said this to you before, but I certainly said it to other people that interviewed me. I feel like a Roman citizen in the year 450, 26 years before the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. The thing about the collapse of great civilizations, people don't realize that they're collapsing until suddenly they collapse. They're just going along and degrading and degenerating, and crises are multiplying, and people are still blithely, they have no awareness that everything's about to come to this catastrophic finale until it happens, and then when it happens, people are completely unprepared for it. So I feel like, having studied the rise and decline of many civilizations in different parts of the world, I feel that's where the West is now. The West is in a spiral of decline, and it's disintegrating, and the main reason it's declining and degenerating is because of the corruption of its own elites. The elites have abandoned the values that made Western civilization the world's greatest civilization. And that's, by the way, the reason why other great civilizations have declined, when the elites themselves become so corrupted that they no longer promote the values of their own civilization. That's when great civilizations collapse. Like Toynbee said, great civilizations aren't murdered, they commit suicide.
Wow.
On that happy note.
How much time do we have left, Jeff, before it all goes
that's something, I always say that as a historian, we can only predict the future retrospectively. I don't think.
I hate to say it. I mean, I tend to agree with you. I don't see, and then you throw the technological stuff on top of everything you just said with AI and younger generations of people that like don't know how to read or comprehend.
Yes, exactly.
Or learn
we already
anything.
have that. I mean, we've already seen. I mean, I've witnessed it over the decades as a college professor that the level of skills of most college students has really declined for decades.
They're trained on like 10-second clips of video.
Apparently,
their brains are wired on like
they lack basic reading skills. They lack basic mathematical skills. They lack basic reading comprehension skills and writing skills, which is why very few college students now can write a paragraph without making multiple grammatical and syntactic mistakes. And part of it is the degradation of the educational system from primary school on. And then you end up with people in college who never mastered the basic skills that they were supposed to have. And that process began even before everybody became addicted to their electronic devices, became such shortest, people that with such short attention spans. So that's just made it worse. There's something that people claim that the average American reads one book a year. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but people have made that claim. And, probably a goodly percentage of those are romance novels. So it makes you, and then you have people like me, people who are scholars who read sections of hundreds of books a year. So if some people are reading dozens or hundreds of books a year, and the average is only one book a year, then that means that there's a lot of people who are reading no books a year.
Yeah.
If you average it out. And by the way, it seems like it sometimes when you hear people talking, answering questions, expressing political opinions. I mean, they just seem like total ignoramuses.
Yeah, everyone is like brain rotted. It's
totally
kind of shocking to it's shocking to behold.
It is shocking to behold, and I don't know that there's any. I don't know what the
How do you even correct that? Like, how could you possibly correct that?
Well, I think you'd have to reform the educational institutions from starting with the grammar schools. And to do that, you'd have to get rid of most of the current teachers. You'd have to get rid of almost all the administrators and the people who develop a curriculum, which is now so ideologically biased. And they've developed all these trendy methodologies for various things that don't seem to work.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to almost rebuild the educational system from the ground up. And I think it's just too late for that. It's just like the idea that you can't turn back the clock. You can't, for example, get rid of the 40 million people that are in this country illegally. You can't round all 40 million people up who've entered this country illegally in the past several decades and deport them all. I mean, logistically, it would be impossible, even if there was a political will even if everybody agreed politically that it would need to be done. And then you'd have the issue, well, what if somebody's been here for 15 years and they've been good, productive citizens and they've been paying taxes and they just have a stable life? I mean, why would you want to deport them, right? So you can't go back to the period before 1965 Immigration Reform Act and restore like the demographics of America in the mid 60s. You can't do that. But at the very least, every sane person should agree that you need to get rid of predatory criminals and gang members and terrorists and other dregs of society, and also just large numbers of people who are on the dole who aren't being productive, who came into this country illegally. Those people should be deported. But I think we've gone too far. I mean, you can see, because even if we have like a president who wants to close the border, and he's done that, and wants to reverse these processes by deporting people, look at all the resistance that there is. And in Europe, you're going to hear the same situation. You've let millions and millions of people from the world's most regressive, tribal, corrupt, backwards societies into Western countries, and these people are not assimilating. They're creating enclaves in various Western countries, and there's parallel Muslim societies in every Western country now, and there's no political.
Do you think foreign-born citizens should be able to hold public office?
Well, I think it really depends. I think if somebody comes to the United States and goes through the legal process and embraces American values, then there's nothing wrong with them becoming a citizen with full citizen rights. The problem is people are not being vetted properly. I mean, obviously the illegals aren't being vetted properly, but even people who go through the legal process. I mean, there's
like Ilhan Omar, for example.
Well, she was let in on her family was let in on a refugee
But
thing.
she hates America.
Yeah, she hates America.
She is not American. As she might be, she's legally American, but she's
Correct.
not
No,
American to
no,
me.
I agree with you. She's not. If you hate everything about the country that you were welcomed in, and she was welcomed. By the way, her family should never have been welcomed because her father was a warlord who was involved in atrocities in Somalia.
Yes,
That was a family that should never have been admitted to America in the first place. And then you're welcomed to America. Uh, you're given like this golden opportunity, and what do? You constantly bite the hand that feeds you. You trash the country that
yeah.
gave you
You
all
want
these
to
benefits.
lecture us,
Yeah, you want to lecture us about
and
anything.
these white liberals are like listening. Are
White progressives, not liberals, white progressives.
white progressives are lapping it up and would like to
Yes,
be
they are.
flogged by the
Well, that's what
daughter
I
of
say.
the Somali warlord about how bad our
Yeah,
society is.
exactly,
It's
exactly.
obscene.
But see,
I
but
can't.
part of the problem though is when people are admitted to this country, whether legally or illegally, then they're put in the educational system, where they have left wing professors telling them how evil the West is, and how oppressive the West is, and how imperialistic the West is. So people who come here, they may actually have a favorable, positive attitude about America, but then their kids go in the educational system, and they all they're imbibing is all this anti-Western propaganda all the time, and that's why you see in Europe and in the United States, like you see like not the original people who immigrated here, but their children and their grandchildren are the ones who really hate America, you know,
Mhm.
because it's no longer there's the assimilation mechanisms that used to operate in the United States are broken down because of multiculturalism and all this other stuff. Before people would come to America and they would go through a new educational system which talked about the positive things of America. I mean, didn't necessarily cover up the bad things, but it really emphasized the unique aspects of America, the things that are praiseworthy about America or about other Western countries. And now you've got the people running the educational system who are basically spending all their time demonizing and degrading the West. So it's not surprising that people who come in from foreign countries end up in with these hostile attitudes to the country that welcomed them in. So
Yeah, I just seeing that. I don't know if you saw the victory party of Mamdani.
I don't watch.
It was
I'm a
like,
person who doesn't. I find electoral politics hopelessly boring. I mean, I
yeah,
vote. I hope certain people are going to win and see, but I don't pay attention to the details. I never watch the coverage on election day or
yeah. It's nerdy.
yeah.
Uh, I just saw a clip of the celebration, and it was like Mehdi Hassan Piker,
Oh
a
God,
streamer, who's to me also
horrible.
a foreigner.
Yeah,
Um, that guy who was arrested but not deported, the Hamas supporter from Colombia,
that
Mahmoud,
horrible,
I
that
forget
asshole.
his name.
Hmm.
And they were like hugging and cheering. And it's
Of
like
course they were.
that image is just an image of civilizational surrender.
Yes, it is. I mean,
I'm
in this,
sorry, like
I
it's not
mean,
racist to say that.
it's not
It's
racist to say that.
civilizational surrender. It's so shameful.
It is. On the one hand,
These
it's
people
like
come from the worst places in the world
correct,
and then
and
want
then
to lecture us on what to do with American
yeah,
society
well,
and
not only
Western
want to
society.
lecture us, but they want to spread all the dysfunctional elements of their own culture in the West, like
It's
like the
and
ridiculous try.
fetishize it with the eating with the hand. And
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
people are
yeah.
never mind
All
the
that.
fact that
Yeah,
these people are elites from their own cultures.
yeah,
All of the people
precisely,
I just mentioned are elites.
exactly. Yeah.
And I
No,
think
no.
they have a shame, like a civilizational shame about the own shitholes that they emanate from.
Mm.
And
Well, if
they
they were really decent human beings, these are people from the elite strata of society in these third world countries. If they had any decency, they would stay at home and try to improve their own societies
total 100%.
instead of coming to another country and then doing their best to destroy the values of that country. That's what they would do
100%.
if they were actually morally decent people. But they're not morally decent people, and they have a backward tribal mentality. All these third world countries have these regressive tribal attitudes about everything. You know, um, my we have to stick together, our group against every other group, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, they have the religious solidarity. If they're Muslim, they have the religious solidarity. And if they're Islamist, they have an extremist interpretation of their religion. So all three of those things are horrible. All three of those things are completely antithetical to Western values and to Western institutions. All three of those things.
And you have suicidal white progressives cheering all of this on from the sidelines. It's like...
Right. And here you need to read a book. There's a guy, Benedict Beckhold, who's written a really good book called Oikophobia.
What is it called?
Oikophobia.
Oikophobia.
Yeah, and he basically talks about how in the West in particular, it happens to some extent in other civilizations, but when Western civilizations become too successful and too powerful, and they create imperial systems, and then they begin importing people from other parts of the world into their, or they incorporate them through conquest or in various other ways. And then Western elites begin to romanticize other cultures as a way of criticizing aspects of their own culture that they don't like. And it eventually leads to a situation of like self-hatred, basically. So oikophobia is the opposite of like xenophobia. It's the opposite of xenophobia. So instead of hating other cultures, you're hating your own culture and your own civilization.
So it's like a part of Rousseau. It's like the noble third.
Yeah. The whole noble. That's another thing. That whole noble savage idea is complete and utter nonsense. If anybody who's actually studied prehistory, and that includes physical anthropologists and some people who do study early history of various parts of the world, and some cultural anthropologists as well, but mainly archaeologists. Anybody who studies the pre-modern societies, there's massive evidence of warfare and conquest and slavery and cannibalism and all these things. This idea that pre-modern non-Western societies were like peaceful, they were in harmony with each other, and they were in harmony with nature, and it's just complete garbage. The only groups in pre-modern, groups that were in harmony with were groups that weren't in competition with other groups. Isolated groups that were not competing with other human groups for scarce resources. Everywhere groups were in competition for resources, there was war and conquest. War, conquest,
the story of
slavery.
Human beings.
It's the story of humanity. Yeah. So this whole idea that of the noble savage, that like people from pre-modern civilizations have like some kind of superior moral values or superior ways of knowing, that woo-woo new age garbage, it's just complete nonsense. And it's just the kind of attitudes that people who hate their own culture adopt, who are alienated from their own civilization. They adopt this. They absurdly romanticize other cultures as a way of criticizing their own culture. Like Tacitus, the Roman historian Tacitus, he wrote a book about the German tribes, Germania. And in that culture, he really presents the German tribes as these noble people, egalitarian society. He was like lauding, and there were aspects of Germanic society that were laudable. But the point is, he was romanticizing the Germanic tribal structure as a way of criticizing the hierarchies and the corrupt aristocracies in Rome, And so that's one of the motivations for people who romanticize other groups, is you view you're very alienated, and you view your own society through very hostile glasses, and then you view other societies conversely, you view other societies through rose-colored glasses as a way of like saying, well, these people are more noble, and they're more righteous, and they're more, they have certain qualities and characteristics that the bad people we don't like in our society don't have.
Gosh, Jeff, you just gave me a flashback to Lewis and Clark, to college.
Oh,
where a couple of the professors they really, except for you and maybe a couple of other professors, it was basically indoctrination of this kind of bullshit. There was like the cultural anthropology class I took about a Micronesian culture.
Yeah.
And the woman was like this doting, like, everything that these people did was just magical.
Right.
On this little island.
Like Margaret Mead.
Margaret Mead. And the other one was like about basically criticizing like the Spanish conquest of South America, as if
Yeah,
it was
because
like just a struggle between the evil,
right,
Spaniards
yeah,
and the friendly, huggable
Aztecs and Incas.
Aztecs, yeah, and Incas, yeah, those lovely people.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
But
it's just fun. It's
yeah,
just that's the kind of revisionist garbage propagandistic history that a lot of people now get in Western schools on different levels.
yeah, I just, it's amazing. I
It
thought
really
this
is
was like
unbelievable that
dead. I thought all this shit was like dead.
no,
I just like
sad,
I
sad but
saw
not
this when I was in college, and like I kind of grew out of the stuff that I read, The Wretched of the Earth, and all of these like leftist,
right.
all this bullshit, and then I just kind of like grew out of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
But people
it's
don't seem
important
to
to
be
read
growing
these.
out of it.
It's important to read these radical theorists because you get an insight into the attitudes because they affect the mindset of like anti-colonial elites and things like that, and also people in Western countries. It's important to understand what their ideas are, but to glorify their ideas and to mindlessly regurgitate and support their ideas. I mean, that's a totally different thing, you know.
Yeah, I just, it's so weird. I think I saw this girl's article that somebody posted from Substack about third worldism
Yeah.
and Mamdani.
Hmm.
And she was like, the new ideology driving Mamdani, third worldism.
Yeah.
And I
Over
did
the
write a
hills.
thing saying like, there are people like Jeff Bale who've been writing about this for like 30 years or something.
Exactly.
Like, this is not new.
Mm. It really
Uh,
developed. Their worldism really became an influential ideology in the 1960s. You know,
yeah.
it began in the 50s. It began even earlier, but it really became like an important ideology in the 1960s. So much so that minority groups in the West, like black radical groups in the West, would travel to Cuba and Algeria and all these third world countries. Their struggle was the same as the struggle of the
Yeah.
oppressed people in the third world, and all this kind of nonsense. So
Throw on a beret. And there was
exactly.
that film Battle of Algiers.
Oh, a great film. Yeah, one of the
That
best films.
is a great film. I saw a high school history teacher
Mhm.
showed that to us. That was like a big.
I've shown that film in every terrorism class I've taught for decades now.
Oh, you have?
Oh yeah, yeah, because it's really a brilliant film. If you want to show a film that really depicts the operational aspects of terrorism and counterterrorism in a really clear way, that's the film to do it. And also, even though the film was sympathetic to the Algerians, the Algerian anti-colonial cause, it it was it wasn't like a totally one-sided biased film because it showed these people setting off bombs and places killing innocent people. The French paratroop commander was one of the most interesting characters. He had some of the best lines in the film. It presented a kind of nuanced view, I thought, of it, even though the sympathies of the director. I mean, I think it was an Italian communist who was the director, Pontecorvo, but he did it in a smart way. He, instead of being just like a simple one-sided black and white propaganda film, it actually showed the human dimension of it, and so even though it was over in the end, it was more sympathetic to the anti-colonial forces. Obviously, it showed the kind of tactics they used and the brutality and everything. And so it's just actually one of the best films you can show if you want to have a illustrate terrorism, counterterrorism.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, we should probably wrap up. Thank you
Okay.
so much
You're welcome.
for joining.
Okay. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about.
Yeah, it seems like it's just like minute to minute over here.
Yeah, there's like endless lunacy going on, and endless lunacy that's on display all the time now. And so there's always things worth talking about and criticizing. That's for sure. So,
What, Jeff, what would you like? I mean, would you just go live in the woods now with what's happening? And like, do you have any advice?
no, I mean I have a pretty comfortable life. I live in a beautiful area. I live in a small town. I it's
But if you were stuck in a big city like Los Angeles, like me, with everything that's happening, and would you just like,
I would be thinking about where I wanted to move to. In other words, I would be thinking about finding a place where uh, you could be as insulated as possible from the worst aspects, the worst manifestations of the breakdown of our society. So, I mean, when I was looking for a place to retire and move to, you know, I was looking in various parts of the world, and my main thing is I want to be in an area where it's not hot. I hate hot weather. So I was looking in like New Zealand, and I was thinking about Tasmania, the part of Australia, the only part of
Mhm.
Australia that's really cool. Asturias in northwestern Spain,
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
like the coast of Uruguay, or
Yeah.
I had all these ideas where I was thinking maybe I'd want to retire to, and ultimately, if the shit really hit the fan, I would probably get rid of whatever assets I have here and try to settle somewhere else. I mean, um, probably from a political point of view, the best place to live would be somewhere in Eastern Europe, where the lunatic self hatred that's so common in Western Europe and North America is not so common. Um,
Like
you know,
Hungary, like Poland.
Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, Croatia. I don't know, someplace like that. I mean, you
Yeah.
might think, I would think I might want to live in someplace like Iceland or some part of someplace in Scandinavia, but those places are under siege now, and there's
I,
all kinds of problems there. The elites there are waking up now, but it's too late. They're hopelessly corrupt. Um, I mean,
yeah.
Denmark might be a good country to move to, but it's so small, and I don't know how hard it is to actually retire in a place like
I
that.
think it's quite hard with it, but that's why it's a desirable place.
Correct. Yeah.
I moved to Spain after college. I lived in Spain for 2 years
Hmm.
in like 1997, 98,
Yeah.
in the South. I
Hmm.
think that might have been like the peak of, I just had the best time. It was before the Euro.
Yeah.
It was a pretty much homogenous, like a Spanish, I, identity
Right.
culture.
Hmm.
It was inexpensive and
Hmm.
wonderful. And I
Yes.
feel like since then, since that kind of, we've been on decline basically, like since then.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean,
Um,
the only problem with the southern part of Spain is too hot for me. You know,
it's very hot, but yeah, I mean, Spain has been
another
ruined
another
also.
country, another country I like is Portugal. I love Lisbon. It's probably too hot in the summer there for me, but Lisbon was
Yeah,
actually
tons of people have moved to Lisbon.
one of my favorite cities in Europe. It used to be really cheap too. Of course, I love all the Europeans. I mean, I love Rome. I love Venice. I love Paris. I love really like Amsterdam. I mean, I like a lot of European. I haven't been to Eastern Europe, but I'm sure I really love in terms of architecture. I love Budapest and I'd
Mhm.
love Prague, and I think, I'm sure some of the Scandinavian cities would be really beautiful. And then, living up in area like in the fjords somewhere, but not too far from a big city, one of
Yeah,
those Nordic countries, that would be pretty spectacular.
yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
But anyway, I hope I don't have to move at some point. But I mean, the problem is Europe's even large parts of Europe are even further down the shithole than we are, and so it's not really like a safe haven you can escape to anymore. You know?
Yeah, I guess El Salvador is a place with Bukele, but it would be too hot for you.
Oh God, yeah, I couldn't be anywhere in Central America.
You wanted to have go tropical for
No,
your.
never. Maybe like some parts, like southern parts of Chile or Argentina, where it's near the Antarctic or something.
Mhm.
you know, but certainly not anywhere near the rainforest or the Amazon or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like going to hell before you die, from my point of view.
Yeah, I've been going to Mexico a lot for the last 5 or 6 years. It's a
Yeah, I
very
haven't been.
small town there. You at
Mhm,
least feel like you're off grid.
mhm.
and you feel like it's still kind of traditional societies and
Yeah.
less, if you can get away from tourists and stuff, like natural food and stuff.
Right. Exactly.
But it's the place I go to has been overrun now and is like
Yeah.
bunch of
All the nice
tech
places
workers
eventually,
on laptops and shit. Like I don't want that.
people eventually find all the really desirable places, and then they get
Yeah.
transformed. So
Yeah.
it's a
Cool.
problem. But anyway, yeah.
Right.
So I don't. Other than that, but I would say being in LA would not be my number one goal if I,
Yeah.
given all the shit that's hitting the fan. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So.
Right. Well,
Okay,
Jeff,
man.
thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.